The last days of Earth were filled with smoke and silence. The cities that once stood tall were broken into ruins, and oceans that once carried life now carried poison. The people who had survived war and greed looked into the sky with fear, because the only choice left was exile. Humanity was not leaving Earth as explorers. Humanity was leaving because Earth had rejected them. On the edge of the ruined planet, a single white ship rose into the sky. It was not built for war. It was built for escape. Inside, hundreds of men and women sat close together, holding on to the hope that somewhere among the stars there was a world that would not push them away. The leader of this small group stood near the viewing glass, his face pale as he watched Earth shrink into the distance. He did not speak. His silence carried the weight of billions of dead voices. Days turned into weeks as the ship moved into unknown space. The humans inside whispered to one another about where they might land. Some dreamed of a place with rivers and forests, a place untouched by war. Others whispered of danger, of alien traps waiting in the dark. Every man and woman knew one truth: they could never return. Earth had cast them out forever. One evening, when the stars outside looked endless and cold, the ship began to shake. Warning lights filled the corridors and children began to cry. A young pilot shouted that they had entered the orbit of an unknown world. Through the wide glass windows, the survivors saw it, an enormous planet with oceans that glowed silver, mountains that touched the clouds, and strange patterns of light spreading across the surface like veins of fire. No one spoke for a long moment. The silence was heavy, broken only by the hum of the ship. Then slowly voices rose. Some called it salvation, others whispered that it was a trap. When the ship descended through the clouds, the humans saw vast cities spread across the land below. They were not like human cities. These cities were alive with colors no one had words for, buildings that bent like glass and grew like trees, and lights that moved as if the city itself was breathing. Then the voices came. Through the communication system, a sound filled the ship, soft, calm, and strangely beautiful. It was not a single voice. It was many voices woven together, speaking in a language that no human had ever heard. Yet every human could somehow understand. "Exiled ones," the voices said. "Your world has ended, but your fate is not finished. You are welcome to our world if you can prove that you deserve it." Fear spread through the ship. The survivors looked at one another with wide eyes. Who were these beings that could speak directly to their minds? Were they gods, monsters, or something in between? The ship landed in a circle of stone on the edge of one of the alien cities. The doors opened with a hiss and warm air rushed inside, carrying a scent like flowers and fire. The humans stepped out slowly, their boots touching the smooth white stone. Then they saw them. Standing before the crowd were tall figures with skin as blue as the deep ocean. Their hair flowed like silver or gold, and their eyes glowed with light that seemed alive. They were not warriors. They were not guards. They were queens. Each of them wore robes that shimmered like liquid sunlight, and their presence was so strong that the humans lowered their heads without thinking. One of the queens stepped forward. Her voice was calm, but it carried the weight of command. "You have left your world behind," she said, her eyes moving slowly across the crowd. "You carry with you the scars of your past. On our world, scars can heal, but only if you prove that your hearts are not poisoned. We offer you more than shelter. We offer you bonds, alliances, and a place among us. But know this: you will be tested." Her words left the humans silent. Some felt relief, others felt dread. No one knew what kind of test she meant. Then, to the shock of the crowd, more queens appeared. They stepped forward with grace, their eyes falling on the men and women from Earth. There was no hatred in their gaze. There was something else, curiosity, and something that looked dangerously close to desire. The leader of the humans raised his head at last. His voice shook, but he forced himself to speak. "What do you want from us?" he asked. The queen nearest to him smiled faintly, though her smile carried no warmth. "We want to see if humanity can rise from its ashes. We want to see if you can give life instead of death. We want to know if you are worthy to stand at our side. Fail, and you will return to the void. Succeed, and this world will not only be your home, but your throne." Her words echoed across the stone courtyard. The humans stood frozen, torn between fear and hope. Some could not look at the queen's glowing eyes. Others found themselves unable to look away. In that moment, humanity understood the truth. They had not simply found a new world. They had stepped into a trial that could decide their future forever. And as the sun set behind the alien city, painting the sky with colors never seen on Earth, every man and woman felt the same cold thought rise inside their minds. Were they truly welcomed? Or had they walked willingly into the hands of queens, who saw them as more than guests, perhaps as prey or as possessions? The first night on the alien world began with silence, but it was not the silence of peace. It was the silence before a storm. The new world, the first morning on the alien world, came with light that was not like the sun of Earth. It was softer, yet brighter, and it spread across the sky in shades of gold, blue, and green. The humans, who had survived the exile, stepped out from their ship to see the land that might become their new home. Their eyes widened as they looked around, because the world before them was alive in ways they had never imagined. The ground was covered in grass that shimmered like glass, bending with the wind as if it were made of liquid light. Trees rose, high into the air, their branches twisting in shapes that seemed too perfect to be natural. Some of the trees had glowing fruits shining like lanterns. Rivers cut across the land, their water silver instead of blue, flowing with a sound that was more like music than rushing waves. The humans walked carefully, afraid to disturb what they saw. Children pointed with wide eyes and old men whispered prayers. It was beautiful, but it was also frightening, because beauty could hide danger. The alien queens led the humans away from the landing site and into their city. The path was smooth, made of stone that pulsed faintly with light beneath their feet. The humans looked up at towers that curved like the bones of giants, their tops lost in the clouds. The buildings were not built with hard edges, but with flowing shapes that looked alive. Some of the walls shimmered like water, and others shifted colors like the skin of living creatures. The leader of the humans walked at the front of the group. His heart was heavy, and his mind burned with questions. He wanted to ask if they were prisoners or guests, but the queens walked in silence, and he dared not break it. At last, they reached the center of the city. A vast hall stood before them, larger than any cathedral on Earth. Its roof opened into the sky, and its pillars glowed with lines of fire that moved like veins. Inside, thousands of alien citizens watched them. Their skin was blue, like the queens, but their clothes were simple compared to the rulers who stood at the front. Their eyes glowed faintly, and they stared at the humans with expressions that mixed wonder and suspicion. One of the queens raised her hand, and the hall grew silent. Her voice filled the air, though her lips hardly moved. "These are the exiles of Earth," she said. "They come not as conquerors, but as the lost. Yet the lost can still be found. Our world offers them a chance to begin again." The alien citizens murmured among themselves. Some nodded with curiosity. Others shook their heads in distrust. The humans stood quietly, feeling the weight of so many glowing eyes on them. A child clung to her mother's hand. A young man clenched his fists. Everyone could feel that this was not simply a welcome, it was a judgment. After a long silence, another queen stepped forward. Her hair was pale gold and her eyes burned brighter than the rest. "Our world is not given freely," she said. "It is earned. You must prove that you can live with us. You must show that you can build instead of destroy. Fail, and you will not remain here." Her words made the humans uneasy. Some of them whispered to one another. How could they prove themselves? What trials would they face? The queens looked at them with calm faces, but there was something strange in their gaze. It was not only judgment. It was curiosity, and perhaps something even deeper. Interest. Some of the queen's eyes lingered too long on certain men and women, as if they saw something more than simple refugees. When the gathering ended, the humans were led to dwellings at the edge of the city. The homes were not built of stone, but of a living material that grew into shape, bending into walls and roofs. The doors opened and closed like breathing. Inside, the rooms glowed with gentle light, warm and calm. The humans touched the walls carefully, unsure if they were alive. That night, the humans gathered together in one of the strange dwellings. They sat on the glowing floor and spoke in low voices. Some were hopeful. "This place is paradise," one woman said. "We can rebuild here. Our children will grow in peace." Others were afraid. "Do you not see?" another whispered. "They are watching us. We are not free. We are being studied like animals." The leader listened in silence, his thoughts torn in two. He saw the beauty of the world, but he also felt the weight of the Queen's words. He knew this was not a simple gift. It was a test, and failure would mean death. Outside, the alien city shone under two moons, its towers glowing like fireflies in the night. Strange creatures with wings of glass flew in the sky, leaving trails of light behind them. The humans watched from their windows, unable to sleep. Then, as the night grew deeper, a shadow moved among the humans' dwellings. A tall figure with blue skin stood at the doorway. Her golden eyes glowed faintly in the dark. It was one of the queens. She did not speak. She only watched, her gaze falling on the human leader. For a long moment, the two stared at each other in silence. Then she turned and vanished into the night, leaving only the sound of her steps fading into the distance. The leader felt his heart race. He knew the test had already begun. Trial and acceptance. The next morning began with a sound that shook the city. A deep bell echoed through the towers, and the humans were pulled from their dwellings by alien guards. These guards were not queens, but tall figures with silver armor that shimmered like water. Their faces were calm, but their eyes glowed with the same strange fire. The humans were led into the great hall once again. This time the space was not silent. The alien citizens filled the air with murmurs. Their voices rose and fell like a wave, creating an uneasy rhythm that pressed against the ears of the humans. At the center of the hall, the queens waited. They stood in a circle, their robes glowing in the sunlight that streamed through the open roof. Their eyes were cold, yet filled with a strange interest. One of them spoke. Her voice was soft but heavy with power. "You have entered our world. You wish to remain. But nothing on this world is free. You must show us your strength, your loyalty, and your will to live without destroying." The humans exchanged nervous glances. No one knew what was about to happen. The leader of the exiles stepped forward. His voice was steady, though his heart was heavy. "What must we do?" he asked. The queen raised her hand, and a section of the floor opened. From below rose a platform made of black stone. Upon it rested strange objects, blades that glowed faintly, staffs carved with symbols, and orbs filled with moving light. "These are tools of our trials," the queen said. "Each of you will face a challenge. You will be tested as individuals and as a people. If you prove yourselves, you may stay. If you fail, you will leave this world forever." Fear spread among the humans. Some whispered that they were too weak, that they could not fight. Others clenched their fists, ready to show their courage. Children hid behind their parents, their wide eyes reflecting the glow of the strange weapons. The first trial began with the younger men. One was chosen at random. He was given a staff of silver, its surface humming with energy. He was led into a circle where an alien beast appeared, a creature with scales like glass and teeth that shone in the light. The beast roared, shaking the hall. The young man trembled but lifted the staff. The fight was short and brutal. The beast struck and the man fell, but he rose again. The staff pulsed with light as he swung it with all his strength, striking the creature across its glowing chest. The beast let out a scream that shook the air before vanishing into smoke. The humans cheered, though their voices were weak with fear. The queens did not cheer. They only nodded, their faces calm as if they had expected the result. More humans were tested. Some solved puzzles of light that shifted into endless patterns. Others faced trials of strength, pushing against walls that moved like living stone. A few failed, collapsing in exhaustion or breaking into tears. But most endured, driven by the desperate need to survive. Then came the turn of the leader. The queen with golden eyes stepped forward and placed a small glowing orb in his hands. It was warm, and inside he saw shadows moving like fire. "This trial is of the heart," she said. "The orb will show your truth. If your heart is poisoned, it will consume you. If it is pure, it will guide you." The leader closed his hands around the orb. For a moment nothing happened. Then light poured from the cracks of his fingers. His mind filled with images of earth, war, fire, betrayal, exile. He saw the faces of those who had died and the faces of those who now looked to him for hope. His chest ached, but he did not let go. The orb pulsed once, twice, and then turned clear as glass. The light faded, leaving only silence. The queen took it back with a faint smile that did not reach her eyes. "You have endured," she said. The humans sighed in relief. For a moment, hope filled them. Perhaps they could truly live here. Perhaps this world would be their salvation. But the silence did not last. At the edge of the hall, one of the alien citizens stood. His skin was darker than the others, and his eyes burned with anger. He shouted words in the alien tongue, his voice filled with hatred. Though the humans did not know his language, they understood his meaning. He did not want them here. Others joined him, their voices rising in protest. The hall shook with the sound of alien fury. The humans looked around in fear, realizing that not all the citizens welcomed them. The queens raised their hands and silence returned, but the anger did not fade. It hung in the air like smoke, heavy and dangerous. The golden-eyed queen turned to the humans. "You see," she said, "not all wish for you to remain. Your place here is not yet earned. There are those among us who will rise against you. If you wish to stay, you must be strong enough to survive not only our trials, but their hatred." Her words sank into the hearts of the humans like cold iron. They had passed the first tests, but the true danger was only beginning. That night, the humans lay awake in their strange dwellings. Some held their children close. Others sharpened makeshift blades, preparing for the unknown. The leader sat alone, his eyes fixed on the glowing city beyond. He knew one truth now. The trials were not meant only to test their strength. They were meant to divide the humans from the weak, to break them apart, or to bind them stronger than ever. And in the shadows beyond the glowing walls, those who hated them were already watching, shadows of betrayal the days after the trials passed in uneasy silence. The humans were allowed to remain in the alien city, but they knew their place was not secure. Some of the alien citizens watched them with cold stares, their glowing eyes filled with distrust. Others avoided them entirely, whispering among themselves whenever the humans walked through the streets. At first, the humans tried to believe they were safe. The dwellings they had been given were warm and alive. The food offered to them was unlike anything they had tasted before, and the children laughed when they chased the glowing birds that floated in the air like lanterns. But beneath the surface, tension grew. The memory of the protests in the Great Hall still haunted them. One night, the leader of the humans walked through the narrow streets of the city. The alien towers glowed softly above him, and the air smelled of strange flowers. He was deep in thought when he heard footsteps behind him. He turned quickly but saw nothing. The silence of the city pressed down on him. He continued walking, but the feeling of being followed did not leave him. The next morning, a human dwelling was found burned. The walls of living material had blackened, and the soft glow of the rooms had been reduced to ash. No one had been inside, but the message was clear. Not all the aliens wanted them to survive here. The queen summoned the leader to the Great Hall. Their faces were calm, but their eyes carried weight. "You must understand," one of them said, "our world is not united. Some see you as a chance for growth. Others see you as a danger. The fire was not our will. It was the will of those who fear what you might become." The leader clenched his fists. "Then why allow it?" he asked. The golden-eyed queen stepped forward. Her gaze was steady, almost cold. "Because strength is not proven in peace. It is proven in the face of betrayal. You must show that you will not fall apart. If you cannot protect yourselves, then you are not worthy to remain." The humans left the hall with heavy hearts. They were not only being tested by the queens, but also hunted by those who lived among them. That night, guards were set at the doors of every dwelling. Men and women stood watch with crude weapons in their hands. Children huddled close to their mothers, whispering questions no one could answer. The attack came in silence. Shadows moved through the glowing streets, slipping past the watch. A stone shattered against a dwelling. Flames spread quickly, the strange walls burning brighter than wood. Screams filled the air as humans rushed to put out the fire with their bare hands. From the shadows, alien figures appeared. They were citizens, not guards, their faces twisted with rage. They carried blades of crystal and shouted words of hatred in their own tongue. The humans tried to defend themselves, but they were outnumbered. In the chaos, the leader fought beside his people. He struck with a broken staff, forcing back one of the attackers. Around him, men and women screamed, and the sound of fire and blood filled the air. Then the queens arrived. Their robes glowed like the sun, and their voices cut through the battle like thunder. With a single command, the attackers froze. Some dropped their weapons, others fell to their knees. The queen's eyes blazed with light, and the citizens fled into the shadows, leaving only silence and smoke behind. The humans collapsed in exhaustion. Some were wounded and some wept. The leader stood among them, his body shaking, his eyes fixed on the queens. "Why?" he asked, his voice breaking. "Why do you allow this? We came here for peace, but you watch while we bleed." The golden-eyed queen stepped closer. She looked at him not with pity, but with something sharper, curiosity and perhaps even respect. "Because peace is not given," she said. "It is earned. Now your people have seen betrayal. They have felt blood and fire on this soil. If you still choose to remain, you will be stronger for it. If you cannot bear it, you may leave." Her words hung in the night air like a blade. In the days that followed, the humans buried their dead in the fields outside the city. They marked the graves with stones, their faces dark with grief. Yet even in their sorrow, something began to change. They looked at one another with new strength. They were fewer, but they were harder. Some of the queens came to the burial ground. They watched in silence as the humans worked. Their glowing eyes lingered on the men and women who refused to bend, who carried stones on their backs and fire in their hearts. One queen, her hair silver like the moon, spoke softly as she watched. "They endure. Even when broken, they endure." The golden-eyed queen nodded. "Endurance is only the beginning. Now we will see what they become." But in the shadows of the glowing towers, the citizens who had attacked whispered to one another. They were not finished. The humans had survived one betrayal, but more would come. The leader stood at the edge of the graves as night fell, his eyes on the twin moons above. He knew that survival here would not be decided only by trials in the hall. It would be decided by every night, every shadow, every enemy that rose against them. And though he feared what was coming, he also felt something else stirring in his chest, something he had not felt since leaving Earth. Defiance. The destiny of humanity. The days after the attack bled into one another. Smoke still rose from the burned dwellings, and the graves outside the city stood as dark reminders of what had been lost. Yet the humans did not break. They rebuilt their shelters. They stood watch through the nights, and they whispered promises that they would not bow, not even in this strange world that was not theirs. The alien queens watched in silence. From the tall towers, they looked down at the exiles, their glowing eyes following every movement. Some of them whispered to one another, their voices low and unreadable. The humans could not hear the words, but they could feel the weight of the judgment pressing down on them. Then, on the 7th night after the fire, the summons came. The humans were called once more to the Great Hall. This time the air was thick with tension. Alien citizens filled the balconies, their faces unreadable, their eyes glowing in the dim light. The humans stood in the center, weary but unbroken. The golden-eyed queen stepped forward. Her gaze moved slowly across the crowd, pausing on the human leader. "You have faced trials," she said. "You have endured our tests. You have bled on our soil. Now we ask you the final question. Do you choose to remain even knowing that more storms will come?" The leader's voice was steady, though his body ached with exhaustion. "We have no earth to return to," he said. "This world may reject us, but we will not leave it. If we must fight for our place here, then we will fight. If we must bleed, then we will bleed. But we will not wander again. This is where humanity will rise or fall." His words echoed through the vast chamber. Some of the alien citizens frowned. Others murmured in surprise. The queen stood silent, their faces unreadable. Then the golden-eyed queen lifted her hand. From the shadows at the edge of the hall came figures the humans had never seen before. They were not citizens, nor were they guards. They were creatures of shadow and fire, their bodies shifting like smoke, their eyes burning with crimson light. The crowd gasped, and even the humans felt fear clawing at their hearts. "These," the queen said, "are the guardians of our world. They do not obey us blindly. They test those who would claim a place here. If you survive them, then you will no longer be exiles. You will be chosen." The guardians advanced, their steps heavy, their voices hissing like flame. The humans raised what little weapons they had: broken staffs, sharpened stones, and sheer will. The hall exploded into chaos. The leader fought with every breath, his broken staff clashing against a guardian's blade of fire. Around him, humans shouted and cried, their strength pushed to the edge. Yet something happened that none of them expected. The queens did not intervene, but neither did they turn away. Some of them stepped closer, their eyes burning with strange light, as if they were watching for something more than survival. The humans fought as one. Where one fell, another stepped forward. Where one grew weak, another gave their strength. Slowly, painfully, the tide began to shift. A guardian fell, its body collapsing into smoke. Another let out a roar before vanishing into sparks. The humans bled, but they endured. When the last guardian fell, silence filled the hall. The humans stood in the center, wounded, trembling, but alive. The golden-eyed queen stepped forward once more. Her face, for the first time, softened. "You have endured fire, betrayal, and shadow," she said. "You have proven that your strength is not only in your hands, but in your unity. You are no longer exiles. You are of this world now, and with you this world will change." Her words shook the hall. Some citizens bowed their heads in reluctant acceptance. Others turned away, still filled with hate. But the decision was made. Humanity would remain. The humans stood in stunned silence. For the first time since leaving Earth, hope flickered in their hearts. Children wept in their mothers' arms. Men and women looked at one another with tired smiles. They had survived. They had been chosen. But as the crowd began to disperse, the leader's eyes remained fixed on the queens. He saw the way they looked at his people, not only as allies, not only as survivors, but as something deeper, something dangerous. The queens had welcomed them, but not out of kindness. They had welcomed them because they saw potential, power, and perhaps a destiny that even the humans could not yet understand. That night, as the humans returned to their dwellings, the leader stood alone beneath the twin moons. The air was quiet, but his mind was not. Earth was gone, its ashes left behind. This world was their new home, but it was not a gift. It was a challenge, a throne built on trials and blood. The queens had spoken of destiny, but destiny always carried a price. The leader closed his eyes and whispered to himself, his voice low and steady. "We are no longer exiles, but what have we become?" Above him, the towers of the alien city glowed like stars, and in their shadows the queens watched, their eyes burning with secrets that no human could yet name. And so humanity's new story began, not in peace, but in struggle. Not as wanderers, but as something far more dangerous.